God had used me to be 21 on the 20th day of June, which only has 2 remaining days. The 28th is a Friday. No business on Saturday, none on Sunday. Monday, the law comes into effect, but voting will begin on the 2nd of July. And the Lord just said, I didn't make you 21 on the 28th. If they fought for it, don't let the other women them get the prize. I understood the divine message.
Welcome. We're speaking with a lady of many, many talents who wears many, many hats. This is Ruby Ann Darling, a name that probably everyone has heard of at some point in their lives in this country. Welcome to Legends.
Thank you very much. It's good being here.
Now, give a quick summary of some of the many things you've done. I know you're an educator, a musician, a politician, and of course you serve as deputy to the Governor General now. Give us some highlights of your career over the years. Your careers, really.
Well, being the daughter of a preacher man, particularly in the, I would say, the black church, the Baptist church, and other churches that don't have to really hear from someplace else other than where they are, but having that freedom of movement and freedom of speech. Growing up in that sort of environment, it gave way to being so many things, from the usher to member of the choir to organist to Sunday school teacher to whatever, to even to cleaning the church.
So multitasking.
And multitasking was natural. Hey, if you had to sweep, come on Saturday and clean up the church, you did that. And I mean, you were all round, as we say. You were an all round. And so I grew up in that sort of environment. Work was not to be afraid of. Work was to handle. And work was to get results.
Great. So you are definitely results oriented.
Yes. I am. The gardener doesn't come, and the lawnmower is there. Well, I could cut my own grass. No maid. I clean my own house and wash dishes and, hey, do everything. All rounder.
Now we're here at a very important site in the Bahamas, Clifton, and just had an event that was honoring women for International Women's Day.
Yes.
Of course, your name is in that list of women that have been doing some major things over the years. And indeed, you were the first woman to register, which was a big thing. But before we get into that, though, when you look back and you look today, how do you think about the women's movement in the Bahamas and the progress or lack of progress that's been made? First, the successes.
Well, the successes are, we hear a lot about the suffragette movement because it comes in the 60s, 70s era. But before the 60s, there was the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s. And as I can see from a vantage point, as I look back over my life and see from where we have come and the role of women, you know, we come in all sizes, shapes, and colors, but we have the same menu. We sing out the same hymn book. It's our homes, our husbands, and our children. That's what we're wrapped up in around. And I see particularly the women playing such an important role because during the early coming into the 40s and the 50s, there was a time when the men had to leave home and go on the contract or the project, you call it.
That's true, really.
And to make way and to, it wasn't like any corn was here. And we had to go to the Egypts, and the Egypt was America, Florida particular, and then moved on up the coastline to pick fruits and vegetables and all like that. And so the women were left in charge. The women had to raise the children and do whatever it took until that
Still
money
go out-
came
still-
back.
Yeah, and I guess in between had to go out and make something themselves.
Had to make something themselves until that money came. See now, you had to put X amount every month as a savings for your family. And the labor board was in charge of that. And every month or so you would go, the time allocated, you would go down to get that money. And I remember with strong women like Aunt Victoria Roll from Exuma, who was Leonard Dame's mother. And she kept all the money. And never was a dollar missing or you couldn't find the money and someone ran off with it. No, but she kept all the money and the people came to her to get their, whatever it was their husband sent for them. Of course, he had to put X amount there for the family.
Did they operate kind of like a ASU thing? Was that kind of coming in?
ASU came out of that. But the man had to send, that was by law, that they had to send every month something was taken out of and sent home. And out of that, the women started the ASU, which really came from Africa. How we can save among us. Because as you know, I always tell people more money in the hood than must be in the Bank of San Francisco.
I
Money
agree with
is
that.
in the hood. Why? Because it's the 5 cents. It was the coppers, and the pennies, and the threepences, and the sixpences, and the florins, and all like that, and the shillings that grew up, and they managed that. Nobody can
I
manage
often
women
joke
like
that-
women.
I often joke that if a man says he's broke, he literally down to his last dollar. But if a woman says she's broke, she got $100 somewhere.
And she's always broke. She's always broke.
But now we look in 2025 and the state of women, the lot of women, if you would say. Are you proud of the work that you've done, your contribution to see where women are now?
Definitely, I'm proud, and not only proud, but that God had placed me for such a time as this, and to look and to see. I went to an event in which Lady Pilling, Dame Marguerite, was on it. On when was it? Just Saturday past, down in Kalani, and they had some speakers there. And man, I see some powerful women. Could you imagine a woman is vice president of Royal Bank and dealing with the Caribbean and what? When only Mr. Young was the one only hired to stand at the door, to open the door and close the door.
That's exactly
at
how
Royal,
it was.
yes, at Royal Bank.
People don't realize that he was the only black man there,
Mr. Young was the only one.
and all he could do was open the door.
Open and what did it say? Open. They had a song when not an old folk would be. It's open Kabanja and close Kabanja, and he was the only one. But now when I looked and I touched the lady, I said, "You've been on it?" She says, "Yes, I am the vice president. I took over from Nathaniel Beneby, who I taught at Prince William's High School." And I said, "Really?" And then to see the other women, and we are some, listen, on both sides of the political divide, when it comes to women, there's really no political divide. We are women. We cry when our daughters are being mistreated and ready to, like Popeye, we're ready to fight. We are almost to depression when our husbands would leave us. And after 30 years of marriage, our homes, that's our sanctuary. That's our haven. The man build a house,
But you make
and
it
we
home.
women make it a home.
We're going to
Yes.
have to take a quick break right this. We're speaking with Ruby Ann Darling. We're going to get into your political career, if we may, after this. Stay with us on Legends. Welcome back to Legends. Your political career. You were the member of parliament for Exuma, the great Exuma. Tell us about that experience.
And how did that come about?
Yes.
I was in my brother's office as a JP. Made some money that day, and sometimes I go to Exuma. And I was saying Friday morning I was on the plane. Went to Exuma, didn't make any preparation as far as Exuma was concerned. Went, came off the plane. Of course, I'd been to Exuma because my dad is from there, and when Mr. Coakley's mother died, he went up there to speak, and I played the music for the, was the organist for that. And I told Kermit, the late Kermit Rowland, I said, look, I just came up here, but I don't have much money, but could you find me some place to stay? And he called, and he said, I found you only one room left at John Marshall's place. When I got there, it was number 10. I say, thank you, Jesus. I say, look like I'm here for something. Found out, saw my cousin, who I knew Dolly, over at the administration building, commissioner's building, and she said, oh, we're having a meeting in the forest tonight. I said, she said, be at 6, and I'll give you a ride. Well, I wasn't there at 6, so I had to catch a ride. Caught a ride in a truck and went deep into the heart of the forest. When I got there, the schoolroom, there were people all outside and to the windows and inside, and I got in. I was in the Senate then, and I got inside, and men were at the desk that I knew, and it was very noisy. Quite a back and forth from outside, inside. And I said, can I say something? Because I wanted to bring some quietness to all the row going on. So they said no, and all of a sudden a lady, I did not notice, a lady from a can of paint, stood up at the back of the schoolroom and said, can I nominate someone? And they look at her like, we here to nominate someone, we have who we want. So she said, like, who? She got up and said, I nominate Senator Ruby Ann Darling.
Wow, and you had no...
I had no inkling.
What?
I had no inkling. My first time going down there to the school, and didn't know anything.
And this was what year exactly again?
This was the year of 1987.
Okay.
87. And then a gentleman jumped up. He said, I second the motion. We tied a pants leg. We can try gown tail. The place went into... I mean, they forgot what was on the agenda. So they said, oh, let her come up, let's hear from her. So I introduced myself. I said, names are synonymous with islands, and you're hearing Darling. I say, from the high seas. I say, but I want you to know that I am a Cooper from Georgetown. My father is the late Reverend Dr. R.E. Cooper, Reuben Edward Cooper, from Georgetown, Exuma. I said, the only reason I was born in Egypt because there was no corn in Canaan. When I said that, the place went almost ballistic. And after that, they said, mind you, here's where ZNS came in. The message announcements was to have read, all the generals are to meet at the schoolroom. There'll be a meeting of the generals. Well, ZNS fix it up. They said there will be a general meeting.
Well,
and that's what caused the confusion.
All in the making.
All in it, and so everybody came. That's why they were hanging outside in windows. That was the meeting called by Sam, what was Sam's name? Sam Gray.
Okay, yes. Late Sam
He
Gray.
was to have been chosen that night as bearer, to be the candidate for Georgetown, Exuma. And all of that within space of minutes. That was changed.
Just to put it into perspective, you're talking about the 1980s, 1987, right? We have 7 women in Parliament now, I believe, and How many with you when you were there?
First woman now going to be elected to my party, and just a second behind Dame Janet Bostwick in Parliament, but the first elected in my party.
How did that feel, being in Parliament, the lone woman out of your party, one of two women, amongst all these men?
Well,
And how did you make your voice heard and respected?
well, I had a backer. Janet and I came from yards apart down on, she's at the end of Wolf Road, by East Street and Wolf Road, and I'm just yards beyond down in Angliston. And we were always friends. And that did not divide us as women. She being, as far as party affiliation is concerned, it didn't come in the way of us. We were sisters. We were women.
Really, that's how it should be.
Yeah, we were women, and we were there to make sure that the women were taken care of. And I remembered I got up and made a speech, and I still have that note. And she said, dearest sister, that's the best speech you made in this house today. And we acted like, okay, you over there, and we like the mamas. And if we say we don't want no raking and shaking up in here,
Ain't happening.
ain't happening. Because, and I remembered really being put down and almost insulted, I would say. I'm making my speech for the budget as a member of parliament for Ragged Island. And the channel was silted up, and it was hardship for women to come from high up of the boat and come down those little dinghies, and it was really hardship. And I took a trip myself on the boat to experience what it was, so I can speak freely and truthfully of what was the situation. So I got up in the house and I said, and I'm pleading for the channel to be, dredged. And I said, because when Cuba opens, I said, and people come from all over the world, they would want a day trip to the nearest island of the Bahamas, which is Ragged Island. And I said, it may be Ragged Island, but that's not the condition and state of it. It ain't ragged at all. Yeah. I said, people will come over. And here's this cabinet minister right in the front of me. And he turned around, he said, stop talking foolishness about when Cuba opens. I say, well, it's going to happen. You may not be here to see it, but it will happen.
And sure enough.
And as they say, sure enough.
Now tell me, you were the first woman to register to vote,
yes,
which is an historic thing. But you weren't able to vote.
Wasn't able because why? Plans had already been made for me to go to Toronto in Canada to school in August. Yeah.
And the election came?
In November, so I was not here. Had I been here, I definitely would have voted in November of '62.
Well, obviously that's something you would have gotten over, but how disappointed were you at the time?
Not really, because to me, when you've completed a task and you move on, you don't stay.
And
you plant a
saw
seed.
where it was going.
I saw where that God had used me to be 21 on the 20th day of June, which only has 2 remaining days. The 28th is a Friday. No business on Saturday, none on Sunday. Monday the law comes into effect, but voting will begin on the 2nd of July. And the Lord just said, I didn't make you 21 on the 28th. So go there, and if those women there, those hard-working women, and we have to speak truth and call it as we see it.
Stay with us. There's more on Legends right after this. Welcome back to Legends. We're speaking with the one and only Ruby Ann Darling, who really has quite a very rich history and career in life, and we're honored to speak with her.
Thank you.
Now, you the first one to register. I bet you went bragging about that a little bit. How many women came in after you, after they saw you make that move?
Well, of course, it was the momentum was there. because the women had gone to England and all like that and got permission and rights to, you now can vote.
So there was excitement.
But that morning, not really. It was a morning of almost somberness. And I got up, seized the opportunity, knew what my assignment was, a divine assignment on behalf of some women who thought that it was over. Yeah, that hey, it was over, but it was not over. It was to go and sign and register and get that card. And so the Lord told me, he says, look here, if they fought for it, don't let the other women them get the prize. I understood the divine message. I knew that God had me to go. And that's how it happened. It was a no. And I always say this, I said, had things go according to planning and progress and the next step and planning up, Mary Ingram should have been the first. Then maybe Eugenia Lockhart and Mabel Walker and Georgiana Simnett and maybe Doris Johnson, who came in, who those women weren't challenged or afraid of young women, who they knew they were able to share and says, look, she's intelligent and she could speak nice, eh? And look at her, and she pretty too. And they say, let's rope her in. This is the time now when we as women have to begin to rope in as much as you've done to the least of these, my brethren. You've done it unto me.
That comes to me, because often you hear people say, and women often say, that women fight women, that they don't really support each other. Do you believe that's
Yeah, that's the truth.
It is
That's the truth. That's the truth. I don't know what it is. I think it's a satanic, I don't know. And then sometimes you'd be surprised to see the intelligence here that it comes from. Not only are the women at the lower spectrum of what's happening, but sometimes you look at women who have attained intelligentsia.
And you figure they'll have your back.
I say, no. The late Pat, what was Pat's name? But she was the one that was always with We Washes Presses and all like that. And Pat wrote a poem when I'll have to get in circulation, when I was saying, I ain't voting for her. Said a picky head. I ain't voting for her because she thinks she doesn't say. But at the end, she said, child, we better come together and vote for this woman. Because all of these women, we're going to benefit. But I think the time has come now when we must put away pettiness. I was so proud of those women in Kalani. Mind, they were F&M women. But I stayed for the duration, and I was so proud of you. Really? You Vice President?
No, it's
and I am so happy and proud when I look and see my student, Dana Munnins. Dana always said, Miss Dallin, Dana, again, this guy, let me carry you home. Come on. And she said, Miss Dallin, and now Dana is in charge of the insurance. When I look and see the girls that were, and they are up and other women achieving, I don't care what color they are. I don't care what party they are.
Let's come back to you now. You now serve as Deputy to the Governor General,
yes,
which is the head of state, the
yes,
representative of the King.
Yes.
When you look back on your life, what do you have to say? What are your thoughts?
All God. All God. Each step I take, God has been with me, as that hymn says, through all the changing scenes of life. Being divorced, young babies, twins, no support, no help or nothing, struggling. Nobody could come and say, man, you see Ruby there, I had to pay her rent, or I had to give her money, or she better let me come there because I pay half of them. No. When I look and see that, had it not been for the Lord on my side, and seeing that a beating on a Palm Sunday, as we're in Lent,
Yes.
coming up, out of nothing in the yard, I'm taking photographs of the children. I have a guest from Canada, a white girl. met in school. And here comes this man, all dressed up and with his friend. And because I'm taking photographs in the journal, he put one beating on me that Palm Sunday. I'll never forget it. But what it did for me, it drove me from a new home through just about less than 6 months.
Been through all that.
Less than 6 months, a new Camaro car of the year in the yard. And I ran, first time in my life, I ran, and my sister was about to move into an apartment in Wilson Track. I said no. The man said, I'm not. I say, I ain't going back. I ain't going back. And he allowed me, Bishop Dawkins, and he allowed me, and I rented that. I'm in apartment number 1. Getting to know the neighbors. Who's in apartment number 2? Mother Pratt, Cynthia.
Oh,
She wasn't even Mother Pratt then.
well, that's funny. That now that's like
You
that's
understand?
Like, the old people say this full circle, eh?
Yeah, she even named Mother Pratt. She's sitting here playing ball, softball and everything. Her whole family is living there. She's like the breadwinner. Her mom's there. We become friendly. I'm Vaughn's godmother. Nikki and those, I have photographs of them in their christening clothes. I would go out, and what I get was to share with everybody. And when I look full circle and come around, for 8 years we lived. I'm in apartment number 1. She's in apartment number 2. To see our life turned around in that whole area. Those who were cursing ain't cussing no more. They're going to church, coming up to my church. Their children, Charles Colebrook, who's in charge of all the restaurants at Atlantis for many, many years. I invited him and told the headmaster, don't look at his report card, just find a chair for him and take him in school. He was the C.H. Reeves, and he never asked me for a ride. And today, he is in charge of all the restaurants at Atlantis. Going through there was, there was really God taking you from where you are to go down, taking you from the heights to go down to the valley to rescue the perishing.
We have to wrap up very soon, but I want to put, because you have really so many talents.
Yes.
And to me, what I think is one of your greatest talents is that you are a storyteller.
Oh yes, I love telling stories.
But what I want to end with is finding out, what is Ruby Ann Darling's passion? And what would you like to see for the Bahamas moving forward?
People. I don't have to know you to help you. Being kind. I'm realizing that kindness is a gift. You can't buy that in Super Value or go to John Bull and say, I've come for kindness. And I think it all comes from my parents, parentage, the church where the home falls down. The church and those lodges, I don't care what you talk about the lodge, but they played an important role as families in caring and sharing and being neighbor, of loving your neighbor. And I think my greatest is to have been involved with so many people from the lowest to the highest. When I introduced Dr. McPhee up in New York to Shimon Peres, who at that time was the former president of Israel, and Maureen Reagan was my friend, and all the great people of the world. And it all comes. It's meeting people and seeing what you can do. If they're down, raise them up. If they're weeping.
You know, the good thing is, there's so much more to come from you, we believe. And I want to thank you for being on Legends and for your contributions to the Bahamas.
Well, I'm grateful too. Now thank we all our God with hearts and hands. Who brought us thus far on our way.
And we'd like to thank you all for joining us on Legends, and we'll see you next time.